From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
Tensions between state and federal officials over how to run elections have been a theme throughout American history, and they're high once again as the Trump administration presses Rhode Island and other states for information about their voter rolls. Are local leaders right to be wary? We'll discuss that and much more with our guest on the first half of this week's Newsmakers, Secretary of State Gregg Amore. Then, 50 years ago this week, a gang of thieves raided secret safe deposit boxes filled with mafia loot. We'll look back at the 1975 bonded vault heist and how it changed the New England mob. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, alongside 12 News politics editor Ted Nesi, and our guest this week is Secretary of State Gregg Amore. Secretary, good to have you. Welcome.
Happy to open for the bonded vault.
You are the warm-up. So look, Pam Bondi, President Trump's Attorney General, wants to examine Rhode Island's voter rolls. What exactly did she ask for in the letter?
So that is not what she asked for. What we received a letter from the Department of Justice, actually it was an email, asking us for a meeting to discuss voter list maintenance. And that's really it. Some states have received requests for their voter rolls. We are not one of those
Colorado,
states.
I think, did.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
So the only request we have is for a phone call. And the Attorney General has responded on our behalf, asking for clarification, because as you know, we don't run all aspects of Rhode Island's elections. So we don't know if they need to talk to the Board of Elections, local canvassing, or us. And so we're seeking clarification. We have not heard back from them yet.
But, why not have the meeting?
Yeah, we will. We will. We just want to be prepared for the meeting. If anyone asked for a meeting with us, we'd ask what the subject was, what we were going to discuss, so we're prepared for the meeting. But we will have the phone call.
But you would admit your office didn't seem enthused to start to talk with them about this.
Yeah, well, I mean,
for the voter who takes that away from the initial way you responded.
Because the way the email was drafted, it cast a pall over all elections administration.
Well, how so?
Because it talked about administration of elections and what was or was not happening in regard to voter registration, in regard to voter fraud. And, that is under the purview of the states. We have oversight in the state of Rhode Island. We have a system that's set up so that it is bifurcated between the Board of Elections and the Secretary of State. And so, in my personal view, I thought this was another attempt to diminish confidence in our elections. And then once we inquired and we saw what other states were doing, we decided, we were always intent on taking the meeting. We wanted to know what was going on.
The folks at home listening to this might think, look, Secretary of State Gregg Amore is probably very confident in Rhode Island's election system. So why not sit down at that table, open the robe, and say, look, it's running great.
And we will. We wanted to know what the actual inquiry was.
All right.
And to your point, you started the conversation talking about voter lists, and that was not part of our email. But those emails were out there, and those requests were out there.
Are you coordinating with other secretaries of state about this?
No, we know what has been requested of other secretaries of state. We're not coordinating with them, but we know what's been requested.
One other question on this, and often when I ask Democrats about President Trump's, his rhetoric around elections, which has sown a lot of mistrust, they say, well, it's all misinformation and the elections are basically fine. But there is clearly a problem when some large subset of Americans doesn't trust and just has this belief that things are fake. And I don't expect the president to start talking differently about elections. He's after 10 years of having him on the scene. Are there steps you think Democrats can or should be taking that would bolster confidence across party lines to bring in more Republicans, especially who are distrustful right now?
Yeah, I do. And I think our office did that in the last election cycle. We visited 8 locations on Saturday mornings and opened those meetings up to the public to ask questions about how Rhode Island elections were administered. It was incredible, the turnout at each one of these, and we chose purposefully locations where there were doubters, where we knew we were getting emails and phone calls from Burrillville, from Exeter, from Warwick. We had them all over the state, and they were well attended, and we stayed, and our team stayed for the entirety of all of the questions. So in some cases, we were there for 3 hours answering questions on elections, and that culminated with inviting folks to come to the Board of Elections and see the process and hear from the vendor ES&S, who is the vendor for our elections machines. So I think that's one way to do it, to talk about our process. Most Rhode Islanders don't know we have a risk limiting audit. They don't know that we are a paper ballot state. They don't know that the risk limiting audit determines the certification of the election. Those are things we have to talk about, and that's the case in almost every state. So yeah, I agree. I think we have to talk about this. And in regard to the email, I'm an institutionalist and a constitutionalist. Article 1, Section 4 gives elections to the states, with the exception of federal intervention, like the Voting Rights Act. And so I believe that is our job, and my job is to protect Rhode Islanders' data and also protect the integrity of our elections and push back on misinformation around elections.
All right, shifting gears, last December, Common Cause Rhode Island filed a complaint alleging that Governor McKee's friend and advisor Michael McGee was an unregistered lobbyist with the controversial ILO contract. Where does that complaint stand?
It's just about concluded. We are in negotiations with Mr. McGee and his attorney, and I say we, the Public Information Department within the Department of State, to find a settlement in this situation that would be similar to any other settlement.
So that suggests you had a finding. Was he an unregistered lobbyist per the rules?
It suggests that we have a finding that he was, in one case, an unregistered lobbyist, yes.
Okay. Did you hire an outside investigator to?
Not an outside investigator. No, we internally investigated, and we've hired Alan Fung as our attorney in this case.
All right. And what's the timeline here?
I would say within a month.
We're going to get a resolution with this within a month.
Yeah.
Okay. And would this be a civil, criminal, so people at home can understand?
It's civil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for him before we go to break?
I thought we were going to go to a break.
All right. Why don't we do that? And when we come back, we're going to talk politics with the Secretary of State. Stay with us. You're watching.
My next question is too long.
Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This is Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Secretary of State Gregg Amore. Ted?
So, Secretary, as people look at Governor McKee's poll ratings, he's in a difficult spot. There's been some talk of Democratic alternatives. Your name comes up frequently. Are you considering a run for governor?
I am not. I will announce for Secretary of State in the near future.
So we can stop writing you as one of the people who maybe would jump in. Okay. What, did you think about it? You had people.
Sure.
I had people calling me. Who were calling you.
When the speculation was that Governor McKee would not run for re-election, certainly considered it. But it appears as though he's going to run. We're at a late date in the calendar, especially for someone like me to raise money. And I'm happy in this job, and it's an important job. And I think there's more to do.
I had one other politics question for you about the Democratic Party more broadly. And there's been so much talk in Democratic circles since the election about the need for Democrats to reach out to men, particularly younger men after they saw them drifting to the right. And there's talk of, Democrats need to be able to talk about sports and this kind of thing. And you were the high school athletic director. You coach baseball. What do you make of that as someone I could see? They always talked when people would talk you up as a candidate, say, oh, he was a coach, this and that. They would talk about that part of your background. What do you think of that discussion happening in the Democratic Party?
I think we want to appeal to all voters. My daughters tell me I look like a Republican. I don't know what that means. So maybe I'm more approachable because I look like a Republican. I guess short hair, middle-aged guy with a blue blazer. We have to talk to everyone. But yeah, I think part of politics is humanization and inspiration. And, you appeal to people in those ways. So someone that can talk about sports, can talk about culture, can talk about a myriad of subjects, appeals to voters. If you're always in the policy weeds and you're never having a human conversation, I think that turns people off. So I think it's broader than just appealing to men.
Looking for an update on this. I've been reporting on the efforts to build a permanent state archives for years. Your predecessor also made a push for it. But you really have tried to convince lawmakers and the governor to budget that. And so far, what you have gotten is a $500,000 from the speaker to study the plan. Where does that stand? And what should taxpayers expect to get out of $500,000 for a study?
Sure, and the request from the General Assembly was that we look at a more scaled back proposal.
Because it was a $102 million proposal, I think?
We in essence took Secretary Gorbet's model and put it forth based on time. So we have scaled that back. We're almost done with our report and with our renderings and with our proposal, and that will be in our next budget request. And
Can you talk?
Yeah, it's going to be well under $100 million.
Thanks.
In fact, we hope that this comes in under $50 million for an archives and education center, but the archives would be specializing in preserving those really important documents and the documents we are not preserving correctly today. So it would not hold the entire collection.
To make it concrete to people, we're talking about like Rhode Island's Declaration of Independence.
We're talking about
like
those treasures, as I refer to them, yes, and other things that we hold now, but not in the way we should, not properly, and some of that is film. So we'd create an archival space for those things to be preserved properly, but also be accessible to the public and create a history center that I think Rhode Island needs. We don't have one. We should have one. I think it will draw all sorts of folks
and your
in from around the
office
country.
is constantly digitizing a lot of these
Correct.
things. If folks haven't done it yet, they should. The digital archives on your website is actually a lot of fun to pour through.
It is, and we continue to do that, but as the archivists will tell you, paper is irreplaceable. We have issues with digital preservation that don't exist with paper preservation. So
files you can no longer open, that kind of thing.
So we want to make sure that we have a safe place for all of these treasures to be. And then we're going to work on expanding a location for the rest of the collection, and we're in negotiations with a few different entities around that.
Do you, just one, now I'm putting my General Assembly budget hat on, do you foresee yourself asking for a bond that you would hope gets on the ballot for next year?
So
to
what we'll
get the
do
voters?
is we'll coordinate with the governor's office. We'll have conversations with the General Assembly leadership and see what the best path forward is for this expenditure. It could be capital funding over the course of years. It could be a bond.
We're and I should tell the control room I haven't gotten any time cues, so I hope I'm not going over. One last history question while we're on that topic. The country's 250th birthday is coming up next year, and you're actually the chairman of the semi-quincentennial. Did I get it right?
That's
All right.
Well done.
For Rhode Island. You know, how can people get involved? What should people be thinking about? I think people don't realize how much hoopla there's going to be next year, locally and very much nationally too. What's going on in the local efforts? Yeah,
so each of the 39 cities and towns have committed to having a local 250 commission or committee, and many of them are engaged in activities already. And so, you know, for Rhode Islanders, they can go right into their backyard and find out what their local committee is doing. And then we have the Rhode Island Commission, 30 members, and we are already engaged in programming, and some programming has already happened, like the presentation of the painting, Brave Men As Ever Fought, which came from the American History Museum, the Revolution Museum in Philadelphia. We have Ken Burns coming in October 16th at Rhode Island College. So these are events that will populate as we get toward July 4th, 2026. We'll have a major water fire event, a lead up to that on July 4th. There'll be many, many local events that will tell the story of Rhode Island's place in the American Revolution. The Newport Historical Society, the Rhode Island Historical Society, there are so many organizations that do well in telling our story. And part of RI 250 is a grant process that is now open. You can go to rhodeisland250.org and apply for a grant to create programming around RI 250.
Does it feel like you're a wedding planner right now?
It does.
Yeah, all right. Secretary of State Gregg Amore, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
When we come back, the 50th anniversary of the bonded vault heist. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This week marks the 50th anniversary of one of the most notorious cases in state history, the bonded vault heist. Tens of millions stolen from a secret bank of safe deposit boxes used by members of the New England crime family to hide their ill-gotten gains. And it was pulled off by an unlikely gang of thieves. August 14th, 1975, police descended on Hudson First Storage on Cranston Street in Providence for a report of an armed robbery. Few were aware that tucked inside the First Storage building was a safe deposit room used by members and associates of the Patriarca crime family. The headline in the next day's Providence Journal read, "Robber Team Raids Safe Deposit Firm." Back in 2010, Target 12 interviewed one of the hostages held up at gunpoint that day, Master Furrier Barbara Oliva.
He says, "Tell her not to look at me. I'm going to blow off her head."
The first man to enter the building on that sweltering August morning was Robert the Deuce Dussault from Lowell, Massachusetts. He pointed a gun at Oliva and others.
I looked over and I said, Are those real bullets in that gun?
And he put pillowcases over their heads. His best friend, Chucky Flynn, soon followed behind, along with Jerry Tillinghast, Robert McCaskill, Jake the Snake Tarzan, Joe Denise, Ralph Skippy Burns, and outside in a van was wheelman Lawrence Mitch Lanou of Woonsocket. Over the course of an hour, the crew cracked into nearly 150 large safe deposit boxes, but had to leave a lot behind.
You just would not believe it was knee-deep money, silver bars, gold bars, raw gems, guns.
And that's what was left behind.
That's what was left behind.
All of the ill-gotten gains, millions of dollars in cash, silver bars, and jewelry was brought back to this East Providence neighborhood and a home where Chucky Flynn had been hiding out. Each of the robbers left the home with a paper grocery bag filled with $64,000 in cash. The real valuable stuff was never seen again.
How often do you see a robbery like that in a small state like this? It's one of the largest monetary robberies in the country.
Former State Police Colonel Brendan Doherty became a trooper 5 years after the heist, but even then, the ripple effects were still being felt in the courts and the underworld.
I just remember from the academy, Major Benjamin coming in and tell us about the players involved in the bonded vault and how that took place.
Major Pete Benjamin was one of the investigators that cracked the case open after an informant gave him the name of the lead gunman, Robert Dussault. On the run from the heist, Dussault was tracked down in Las Vegas with a prostitute-turned-girlfriend named Karen Sponheim. Dussault eventually agreed to cooperate, testifying against the other thieves, including his best friend, Flynn. What did you learn?
That there was a hit out on me.
So did Barbara Oliva.
Detectives were living with me in my house, around the neighborhood.
It was the longest and most expensive trial in state history after Dussault was whisked away to the Federal Witness Protection Program.
When I was on the street, after I started robbing supermarkets, oh man, they were easy.
Target 12 obtained this video of Dussault speaking to Providence police cadets years after the heist. One thing is very obvious: Dussault liked to talk.
Getting $80,000 out of a supermarket, you got to be nuts.
And his favorite topic,
Get to the famous Barnum Vault. I love to talk about the Barnum Vault.
Dussault said the heist was masterminded by John Ouimet, who was part of a powerful and ruthless faction that answered to mob boss Raymond L.S. Patriarca.
It was one of the scores of the century, as far as I'm concerned. It was the ultimate. I went from rags to riches.
Dussault said the heist was given the green light by none other than the boss himself.
Why was it ice cream? Because we already had the okay from the man.
Investigators believe Patriarca authorized the heist as payback. He felt his soldiers had shortchanged the family while he was serving time at a federal prison in Atlanta.
Nobody does nothing big in this whole area without his okay and without him getting a piece of the action.
Patriarca was never charged in the bonded vault heist and denied his involvement for the rest of his life. Target 12 obtained Dussault's FBI file under his assumed name, Robert Dempsey. Documents show the Bureau thought Patriarca may have used an underworld contact in Europe to convert the jewels and silver bars into cash. Agents searched in Bern, Switzerland and Bonn, Germany, but came up empty. For Dussault, he knew his cooperation was a death sentence.
My name's on that bullet. I hope it never finds me.
Flynn's conviction went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where it was upheld. He died in a federal prison in 2001. Only two members of the gang that took part in the heist are still alive: Robert McCaskill and Joe Denise.
Wish you guys all luck. A lot of it.
Then there is the mystery of Robert Dussault.
Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
This bizarre video obtained by Target 12 shows his burial in 1992 in North Dakota. At the time, Dussault was in the Witness Protection Program because the mob wanted him dead. At one point in the video, just after the lid of the coffin is closed, the recording stops, then restarts, forever laying a seed of doubt that maybe Dussault simply walked away from his own funeral. 50 years of the bonded vault. I enjoyed working on that project a lot, I have to tell you, and it does blow my mind that this is the 50th anniversary of that heist. You have to keep in mind I was a 1-year-old right when the heist happened, so it's kind of like my life as
well, your whole life too, because your father,
yes,
you know, who I think most years know, Jack White, the late legendary investigative reporter, worked on this for years, and it's a great the funny intertwining of your family, the journalists in your family, you and your dad, with the story is always been fascinating. There's your dad right there.
Yeah, so he was in the investigative unit at the Providence Journal at the time, and the story was handed off from Wayne Worcester, who is a co-author of mine in the Bonded Vault book we wrote. When word got out that some of the box holders had mob connections or were wise guys themselves, that's when my father and Randy Richard took over on that.
Because the Journal editors, until then, it wasn't a...
It was a robbery.
It was a regular robbery.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a Watergate tone, where it was only when the names attached to the robbery
100%
are looked at, which is funny in the context of Jack White. Some of you will get that. But seeing those names led the Journal editors to say, this isn't just any robbery. This is our investigative unit needs to work on this.
Yeah, Jack, Randy, you got to hop on this because of the names that are involved.
Now, another funny, since I am a Tim White historian, is you got to tell people the story that you met Robert Dussault, that lead gunman, at a parade when you were 3 or 4?
So my parents have told me this. I was 3 or 4 years old in Newport. I believe it was the St. Patrick's Day parade. Dussault is in state police custody, not because he's under arrest, but because he's going to testify in the trials, not just Bonded Vault, but other trials. And the way my father told me the story is, all of a sudden he sees Robert Dussault flanked by 2 plainclothes state troopers walking down the parade route in Newport. And he comes over to the family. I'm told I met him. I don't remember it because I was so young. But the hubris of Robert Dussault, the ego that he had, we've learned from that tape that we saw and through the reporting that my father did, that rings true, that story would happen. Not that I doubt my father would tell me anything different, but it is pretty wild that somebody who would eventually end up in the witness protection program was just walking down the parade route in Newport.
It's very 1970s Rhode Island. Tell to the envelope story. People will love that.
So as we were working on the book and a documentary for Channel 12, we had trouble finding out what happened to Dussault because he was in the witness protection program. My mom in 2008 brought a box over of Dad's stuff, and it had this envelope with a return address on it that said Robert Dempsey. Don't know who that is. That number turned out to be an inmate number. I got the inmate's records. Turned out he was dead. I used that to get Mr. Dempsey's FBI file. It took about 2 years, but eventually here at Channel 12, a box showed up with hundreds of pages, and one of the sheets said Robert Dussault, aka Robert Dempsey. And I like to say that, you know, if my mom had not brought that box over in 2008 with that envelope, which by the way had no letter in it, I don't think we'd be talking about it. The only reason that it flagged it for me is I remember before Dad passed, him telling me the last thing he knew is the federal government gave him a new identity and a job at Coors Brewing Company, which of course is
put him out in that. Do you think he's dead? Do you think Dussault was dead?
I think he's dead now. We interviewed his family, who swears he showed up at a wake in 1994. The government says he died in 1992. If he were alive, though, he would have reached out by now.
Yeah, probably. He'd be on camera.
All right, that's it for us. For Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.